Hello, everyone, and welcome to Claris Community Live. I'm Rosemary Teege, Community Manager at Claris, and with me today are Koen van Hulle from Lesterius, Matt Voogt from FullCity, and Kate Waldauser from Violet Beacon. And helping me with production today is Tyler Furman from Claris. Welcome to our panel discussion about becoming an AI pro when you're already a FileMaker pro. And to get started, please do take our survey. You can get to Slido by clicking on the apps button in the lower right of your screen. And today we're going to try something a little different. I'm going to be turning on polls throughout the panel discussion rather than just at the beginning and the end. So please, we hope you answer and that our poll questions prompt some thought for you as you begin your AI explorations. So to get started, I'd like to ask each panelist, please introduce yourself and share a recent AI win that surprised you or your clients. And Koen, why don't you start?
My name is Koen. I'm a technical lead at Lesterius, a Claris partner in Europe. You could know me from some articles about my wins and struggles with AI on the community side. My biggest win with AI for the moment or recently is using AI to learn AI. In fact, there's a lot of resources available or a lot of information available that AI can teach us about AI.
And Matt, what about you?
I think Matt's on mute.
Matt, you're on mute.
Hello. Hi. I've been a developer for 16, 17 years now. And recent wins, I've kind of just started using, the chat implementations of AI to help troubleshooting. It's been a huge help, trying to figure out syntax of API calls and, okay, what could possibly be going wrong, and simply throwing some code into a chat bubble and having it analyze it has really sped things up when it comes to troubleshooting.
And Kate.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Kate Waldauser, and I am the founder of Violet Beacon. So I had the fortunate opportunity to start a new business this year. So I've been in the FileMaker community a long time, but under a new brand now. And let's see, this morning I was using ChatGPT with audio on to help prep for this community live. I was thinking about what I want to say, and I was using it to get feedback and practice what I was going to say. So that was my most recent win, just 20 minutes ago.
All right, thank you. And I'll just share before we go on, my recent win was I used AI yesterday to clean up the outline and turn some of our talking points into thoughtful questions for the panel.
Very good.
Yeah, so we have some results from our opening poll. Our first question was, what is your experience with AI? And we have a nice bell curve. A handful of people said AI, is that a typo? About 30%, we've been introduced. 50% getting the hang of it. 14% are pretty fluent. And it looks like one person maybe, or two people said, I dream in algorithms. And then our second question of what is the AI literacy of the people you build apps for? And to a large extent, people are in the beginning part of that journey. A quarter said AI is science fiction to them. About 70% of people said they're AI curious. A quarter are getting the gist, and then a very few said that they have clients who are fluent or native AI speakers. So it sounds to me from these, and I don't know if this weighs out in your experiences with client projects as well, that developers are starting to adopt AI and they're just a few steps ahead of their clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds about right to me. We're all newbies at this for sure.
Yeah, so as we are all newbies, can each of you share a little bit about how you got started? And Koen, why don't you start, since you wrote that great series of articles?
Yeah. So it started, in fact, on Engage, where I followed the session of Claris, and then all kind of new wordings came up, and I thought, oh, what did I miss the last couple of years? So it was for me like a trigger to start and have a look in it. And it started as a disaster. So because I didn't know any of the landscape, I didn't know any of the terminologies. I just tried to set up an open source AI server, but didn't know what settings to do or what models to load. So one of the things that I did was getting helped out by colleagues, and in the company. And in most companies, some of the AI champions are not really the usual suspects. In my case, I'm helped with some juniors, also with an internship in my exploration. And second, I looked into the market. I wanted to understand the concepts of AI. That's when I stumbled on videos from IBM. They have very good resources on that matter, explaining in 3 to 5 minutes all the concepts in AI, and that helped me as well. So my first win was then to leave OpenAI alone and started opening some paid subscriptions at OpenAI and Claude and Anthropic, because I was very afraid of all the horror stories you could see on the internet about costs that were completely running out. But then I start opening these commercial things, started to experiment with it, put some limitations on it, and so, okay, it's not that bad. And then I had my first wins, in fact, and then the ball was rolling at the end.
What about you, Matt?
Like most, I think, ChatGPT or like the search capabilities of AI were kind of my first introduction to using AI. Um, just getting answers. But then 2 years ago at Engage was really where I, started seeing the possibilities of how I could actually use this in development. And a lot of the examples that Ronnie showed at Engage, and the sessions were heavily geared towards AI. That's where I really started to have an interest in, okay, how can I apply this to the real world and add value to existing solutions. And then with this latest release of FileMaker in July, that's where I really started to dive in. So, having, for as long as I've developed FileMaker, the AI portion, I'm still very new. And, I'd even say I'm not a novice, but, things are changing so quickly. Um, I'm constantly learning, and the way that I did something a month ago is probably already different. There's probably better ways to do it now. So yeah, constantly learning.
I think I've seen some agreement about that. And Kate, what about you?
Yeah, so I guess I think back on my FileMaker journey because yeah, like most of you, I've been I've been using FileMaker my entire adult life. And I think about how I learned FileMaker, and I was just super curious, right? So I picked up a book on FileMaker 7 at some point. I was reading it and I was understanding, relationships and schema, and it just took this curiosity, right? And like, hey, I like this tool. I want to learn more about it. And that's kind of been what's propelled me through my entire journey as a developer. I became really interested in Claris Connect and APIs and workflow automation, and just like, hey, I want to learn as much as I can about this. And then, yeah, around the time that ChatGPT, came mainstream, right? Like the first time I played with it, it just kind of blows your mind. You're like, what is this? Because it's so different from any other tool, right, that I'd used before. So around that time, I just really started devoting more time to understanding AI, and I started going to conferences and talking to other people and reading as much as I could, and just trying to absorb all of this information, which isn't an easy feat, but I think it takes that level of curiosity. Like the more you want to know about it, all the information is out there. But I will say, you know, one thing that was, I just remember like early in my learning days, you know, I'm listening to all these, you know, podcasters or people on YouTube and getting all these like headlines that say like AGI is here, this is happening now, right? And it's easy to get caught up and think, oh, what is happening? It's happening so fast, I don't know what's going on. And I think part of my journey and part of what my mission in Violet Beacon is around responsible AI and helping people kind of cut through the hype and understand what's really possible, because there's a lot of hype out there and it's easy to get confused or misled or you know, and I just want to validate that because I've been down that journey and it's definitely a tailspin, but I feel more grounded and just to say, like, yeah, as part of Violet Beacon and what we're doing and offering, you know, is responsible AI, and I'm working on some new courses around responsible AI and FileMaker, and I'd like to share the link with that. They're not available yet, but I'm wanting to share what I've learned with the community as well.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience of, as you're getting started, do you have a recommendation for if you're just experimenting with an LLM chat interface, preference between Claude or ChatGPT?
Try them all. And not only Claude and ChatGPT, but experiment also with Mistral, with Gemini, just to see how models behaving. You get some experience from it. If you only have experience with one chat assistant, you tend to go into one direction, and sometimes you have a better win with Claude and Claude and with other things than again in GPT. For instance, ChatGPT is good in image generation. It's something that is you don't ask that to Claude because then you get images that could be made by a child. So depends a little bit on what you want to do, but my advice is experiment with multiple of them.
Yeah, I started asking like the same question. You know, I'd have like all three different apps up and just ask the same question in all three and see what the responses come back as.
And I just want to, I think I put this in the wrong place, Rosemary, that link that I just put in. Oh, that's not where my course is. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll put in that later. LM Arena is a really cool tool if you're not familiar with it. So it's a public site. Just be aware any information you put in there, you know, could be used to train the models. But what it lets you do is kind of put in a prompt, and then it's going to show you two responses, blind responses. You're not going to know which model provided those responses. And then you get to vote which model is better, and then it displays which model. So I think it's kind of useful if you want to really explore different models and spend a little bit of time just playing with it and to get a feel for it, because it's true. Each, you know, models work differently. They have their own personalities and quirks. And so there's something to that, but I like this tool. So I just put that in there, and I'll get the link to my course now too.
All right. And will you do that, Koen or Matt? How do you balance the costs of experimentation while you're learning using the public models?
Most of the vendors foresee that you can put limits on it. So I put some limits on a couple of euros per month, or 10 euros or 20 euros per month. But in the beginning, I was too afraid of it. So my first bill came in, and then it was not even €1 for that month experimenting with the model. So it really depends on which model you choose, how easy you burn it. But I would suggest to put limits from the beginning, and then you get some alerts and see them. And the documentation is pretty good on most of them about how much how much a certain model is costing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked at how far $10 will get you on OpenAI's API calls. It was really negligible for quite some time, and a lot of the other tools have calculators. A lot of the offerings from Google and Amazon, so you can have a pretty good idea of what to expect cost wise. So check out if there's any estimating tools or calculator tools can help you as well.
And Kate, you alluded to your mission being to bring responsible AI to your clients and the FileMaker community. How do you explain responsible AI to your clients?
Well, thank you for asking that, Rosemary. Yeah, I know I mentioned that briefly, but that really, like on my AI journey, I really found that I was drawn to this concept of responsible AI, and it's taken me time to kind of understand it and help people understand it. And so I'm going to bring up a few slides that I have created here. Let me share my screen. Oops. Okay, so when I talk about responsible AI, I'd like to make it clear to people because there's a lot of terms out there. There's ethical AI, human-centered AI, trustworthy AI, and again, this is semantics, but I feel like when we're dealing with LLMs, semantics are important. Language is important. So I define responsible AI as it's an umbrella term that refers to AI that's implemented conscientiously at every stage of the AI lifecycle. And what that really means is it's a set of principles to ensure that AI serves people with thoughtful choices about which problems the AI should solve, how it makes decisions, and how its impacts are measured and managed. So this is the entire AI lifecycle. So, oops, yes, here we go. So again, I mentioned it's an umbrella term. So these are the 6 principles that I'm using. Again, you're going to find some variability out there, of course, when you talk about this, but these are principles, right? And then the idea of building responsible AI is operationalizing these principles. So we use this as our guide, and then we build the tools and the techniques, and we use the different techniques to implement this. So what this really looks like here, and there's a lot of information on this slide here. I know we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit more, but we're talking about, fairness, transparency, accountability, privacy and security, reliability and compliance. And then these are, underneath here, some of the key practices are how we go about, implementing, like having the practical tools, because it's one thing to say fairness, but what are we actually talking about? And I think this is where having knowledge about AI and what it is and the different factors that go into it when you're making decisions, like let's say models, right? So we're talking about, in fairness, one aspect might be model selection. Having enough information to know how the model was trained, what data it was trained on, right? So these are the factors that I'm talking about when it's like the things that will be considered when you go in and start building an AI system. So let's see. Rosemary, did you want to ask a?
Yeah, so actually there's a question from the audience, and this kind of, I think, goes to reliability. And that is, how do you deal with hallucinations? So in the example is, I'm asking Claude and ChatGPT to help me write a FileMaker script, and I'm getting script steps that don't exist.
Right. So this is where, yes, there are advanced tools and techniques. So when you're dealing with like Claude or ChatGPT out of the box, right? You just open it up. It's what's called like a foundation model, right? So it's got a lot of training in it. It has a lot of general knowledge. It's kind of a general purpose technology. But in order to really, and I'm going to use the word fine tune, although that's going to mean something different in AI, but to really make it work for the process that you want it to work, specifically for. You want it to work specifically to write FileMaker scripts. Well, that's going to involve adding a level of training data. So whether it's creating a custom GPT, training it on the FileMaker, what am I trying to say? The documentation about how scripts work. And so we have to be able to give it that information. We can't expect, because FileMaker is kind of niche, let's admit it, like it's not going to be perfect out of the box. So that's where having those kinds of techniques like training, using tools, is another aspect of creating reliability. When people talk about agents, I know that's something that's another hot topic in AI right now. What they're talking about is using an LLM, which is a large language model, which is, of course, ChatGPT, in addition to adding tools, right? So the tool might be a calculator, right? Not expecting the language model to do math, but giving it a tool like a calculator in order to do the math. So if there was a tool that was, a FileMaker script writing tool, giving that tool to your LLM. So it's kind of like connecting the two pieces. You're using the LLM for natural language communication, but you're using the tools for the actual, implementation of specific skills.
And anyone, I think, start with Koen. How are you putting these principles into practice for your client projects?
Well, it starts with a discussion as well. It's a lot of them is about compliance and also about who is taking a decision. It's not because you implement AI that AI takes the decision for you. So you have to keep the humans in the loop. But there are some models for that to have that practice. You have a human in command. That means that at that moment, all decisions are made by a human. So AI do a suggestion and do human. And on the other hand, you have then the complete opposite, where you have the human as an auditor, but that AI takes all the decisions. To take that in practice, imagine you would have implementing AI to predict how long you will wait in a theme park on a certain roller coaster. You don't want to have a human in command every time to verify if the wait time is correct. There are not huge consequences to it. You can have some unhappy clients if it's not okay, but you have to audit from time to time your model if it's still working well. On the other hand, if your model or your AI is doing diagnosis on a certain disease, you don't want that the AI takes decisions on if you're ill or not. That's something for a doctor. So that's a human that needs to take that decision. Next to that, of course, there is regulation like the AI Act in Europe, and some other countries have their own laws popping up that explain exactly what kind of situation you can use AI and what kind of AI you can use and what kind of decisions can be taken by AI as well.
Yeah, I think, building on that compliance aspect, Koen, in the US, of course, we're doing it a little bit differently, right? So there's statewide regulation getting passed, and currently there are 4 states that have passed regulation: California, Texas, Utah, and Colorado. And I know, so I'm in Texas, so I'm more familiar with the Texas laws that are going to go in effect on January 1st of 2026. So it's right around the corner. So I think it's important to understand, and the Texas AI Act, Responsible AI Act, is actually based off of the EU AI Act loosely, right? So it's the one of the main components of it is that risk assessment. It's what are you using the AI for, right? And where does the human come in the loop there? But it's important to know that these regulations are affecting not only if you operate business in Texas, but if your clients are in Texas. So there's, this is, it's not just a nice to have anymore. Like, this is becoming required, right, through regulation as well, as not only being able to protect your reputation. If you violate, not violate, that's too harsh of a word, but if you don't follow some of these responsible AI principles, yeah, it can hurt your business's reputation as well. That I just want to touch on the transparency aspect, because I think this one, especially in FileMaker, you know, we as developers, like when you're using AI or building a feature in AI in FileMaker, disclose it. There should be a simple like dialogue. It should be disclosed because it's important for people to know, you know, it helps us build trust in our systems. As people are, you know, AI is new to most people using it, they want to know where it's being used. So if you have some, you know, chat feature or, you know, some decision making feature within your FileMaker solution, just adding, you know, that's the user notices, just adding that, you know, the explainable AI and interpretable AI has to do with like with logging, which again we have this the tools to do this within FileMaker via the logs, and via the trace availability in some of the script steps. So yeah, using these features is important, I think, in building a transparent AI system and delivering that to our clients. So I wanted to mention that aspect as well.
And Kate, circling back to the regulations that are coming into play in the US, just to clarify, where does it matter? Like, so is it where you are operating your business or where your client is?
So
or where your users are?
So each state has their own law. So it's going to be different depending on, you know, I think Rosemary, you shared that link, right? That has
Yep.
so that's been a useful page for me or website for me because it has all the state laws and where they are and it's getting updated regularly and kind of breaks it down. But it takes a lot of, you know, you'll have to spend some time reading and understanding them because they're a little bit nuanced, I think, and then there's going to be more coming, as you can see. So those are just the 4 states that currently have laws passed.
And Koen, thank you also for sharing a link for Europe as well.
Yes, and like with everything with this, it's good to have some legal advice. We are not legal experts in this as a developer, so if you're unsure, check with a lawyer or with a company that has some experience with this.
Thank you for that caveat, Koen. That's very important to mention. We're not giving legal advice here.
All right. And as you're working with clients, how do you set expectations with them about AI projects?
Well, it's not only just giving AI to your users, you have to be sure that they have some AI literacy as well. If they don't know, if you give them a chat prompt and they don't know how to build a prompt and what to expect from an LLM, that's not very useful. So and everything is still in an experimental phase at the moment. So often we bring them as an experimental feature. It's a journey you do together with your users. So you don't bring it as a replacement for a certain feature.
Matt, you've recently shared a really successful experiment. Do you want to tell us about your process to develop that?
Yeah, I always right now, like I don't introduce it anything mission critical, but you know, I like to put like reviews. So like if they do something AI related, whatever the response back, you know, I ask them, you know, to rate it, you know, give it 1 star, 5 star, and then I log, okay, what did they ask or what process did they do and what was the response? And if they give it a 1 star rating, I can kind of assess, okay, well, how did that happen and what can I do to better program it so that it gives them the response that they actually wanted.
Yeah, and do you want to share your specific recent success with ingesting documents?
So as many of you, I'm sure, like, okay, we have this new cool technology and I see that it's very powerful, but being able to implement, like, okay, so what can I do with this now? Finding real world applications for it. And so I was trying to find like a real world scenario of something that was painful, repetitive, and I thought, okay, maybe I could have a shot at using AI in some way. And I have a solution that I built for invoices or purchase orders, and a vendor comes or a customer comes and gives you an order, and then somebody has to hand enter it into a FileMaker solution, a bunch of line items, 20 line items, and that could be very tedious, prone to error, and time consuming. And so my first shot at trying to solve this problem was, okay, going to ChatGPT. I take this PDF, upload it into ChatGPT, tell it, okay, here's the PDF, here's the JSON response that I want back of what I want it to look like. And surprisingly, like it was very it was pretty good. I mean, maybe 70% of it was correct, but it wasn't very consistent. So like if I then gave it a second PDF, its ability to give me back that data in the same format, it just like the format wasn't the same every single time. um but that was like my first shot at it. So then I asked ChatGPT, okay, you're not the right tool for this, but point me to other resources that might um get me what I want. And so then I tried uh other AI technologies that weren't really chat related, but were specifically geared towards document recognition. And I'll just share this 20-second clip here. Um, and so like this is a FileMaker solution that I built, and you can see there's a you know so you could say like import transaction, and then somebody's got a PDF of a purchase order. They could simply drag it into FileMaker, and then FileMaker assesses the PDF, uploads it to an AI service, and then boom, it recognizes the customer, it imports all of the line items, and there's a bunch of different things happening here. So, some of it is going out to a service, some of it is using FileMaker's native semantic matching. So, for example, like if a part number wasn't on the order exactly out as it appears in FileMaker, I can use a semantic comparison to try and find a matching number. Or if the customer name that they call themselves isn't quite what I call them in FileMaker, I can still match to the correct customer. So obviously there was a ton of trial and error, but what started as in ChatGPT, uploading a PDF, I was eventually able to get to the correct or a better tool, and also pair it with some native scripting and FileMaker technologies to come up with a big, this was like a big win, and something that is a huge time saver for companies that get 20 to 30 of these orders. Instead of having to hand enter them, they can just drag them in, and then boom, they're imported.
Yeah, couple questions. What AI did you end up using in the end for the document recognition? And is that a public AI, or is what are the security or other terms
Yeah.
around that use?
So this one in particular is a product from Google called Document AI. Um, I recommend it. It's pretty awesome, and it's not only for invoices. It does W-2 recognition, contract recognition, and the thing that was so compelling about it is that you could upload a document, and the JSON that it gave back was always consistent. Like if I was looking for like the customer name element, it's always the same every single time. Um, so that's what I'm using in the video that I just showed you. The security and privacy implications of that really is per what are you setting up there. What I'm sending here, this order is pretty low there's nothing super sensitive on that information. It can all the Google Document AI can also analyze like W-2s, which may be a little bit more sensitive, but yeah, it is leaving your, it is going up to a service offsite. But then once I bring it into FileMaker, it's able to tell me, okay, this is the customer name, but then there's other problems like, okay, well, this customer name doesn't match what's actually in my FileMaker database, and that's where I start using the on-prem AI services from Claris to do the semantic matching. So there's a few different AI elements to it, but the bulk of it is in the Google Document AI.
Yeah, and there's another question is, do you then have a human review what the AI has entered to see if everything is correct?
Yes, in fact, let me just bring this up again. So you'll notice here, like when it completes, I give it some notes at the end, like the following items were imported. So, okay, this part number didn't quite match. And you'll notice in the background, like the first line item is highlighted in yellow. That was an indication to the user that although I imported this, I'm not 100% confident that it was the correct item. So please review this. Anything that is not highlighted, I was pretty certain that we found the correct part number. So yes, it is reviewed. I sort of leave it in a state of asking the user to proofread what was just imported. But the limited amount of time that I've had this available to users, I find that it has to be accurate. Just human nature is when they drag in the PDF, they expect it to be 99% correct. So I really had to fine tune this to be as accurate as possible, and the semantic matching actually was a lot of trial and error trying to get the what a customer might put as a part number and what was actually in my system. There was a lot of trial and error there.
I think there's also a couple of general questions about, were you able to do any training of the Google document tool, or does that tool just exist as it is?
So it does exist as it is, but the training, yes, you can also train your own what they call processors, and there's a lot of value there. I would say that out of the box, it was doing a really great job at distinguishing what is a line item and what is a PO number, what is a customer number. It was actually quite amazing how it was able, like sometimes the quantity fields were on the right, sometimes the quantity column was on the left. But then when I fed it like 50 purchase orders of this customer, and specifically said, here's the quantities, here's the item numbers, it got a lot better. So yes, it was very good out of the box, but then spending the time to train the processor was hugely valuable. And then the last part of that is like the semantics, the FileMaker side of the scripting of me doing some very specific business logic, kind of just pushed it all the way to the end. But yeah, the training is huge.
There's an Ask Matt, can you share a link to the Google Document AI tool? And
Absolutely.
also another quick question is this a multilingual tool?
Ooh, that I'm not quite sure about. I would assume yes, because it's really just about identifying, like if I fed it that same PDF and it was in Italian, it's still going to be it's looking at structure, like this is the purchase order number, these are line items. I don't see why it wouldn't work in a similar manner. I'm going to put this in the chat here.
Okay.
Um,
And this is a question for Koen or Kate. As we keep going, how do you handle clients who expect AI to be a magic solution?
Well, that's AI is not magic, so it's just a couple of algorithms. It looks very magic, and it not always tell you the truth, even if you think it's the truth that he tells you. So then you discover later that something was told that was not completely true. It's literacy is learning how to how AI and how the several models are acting. What do you expect from it? Evaluation is important. Like Matt did in his tool, he asks also feedback to the user. There is a human who is in the loop and say, if you implement something, it could be good practice to ask for feedback from your users so that they can provide you, next to logging and other kind of things, that they can give some feedback and say, okay, this was wrong. If you just trust on an SQL statement that has been generated by AI, and that figure comes back and you don't know what the figure exactly means, but you trust that figure is okay, then that's not really a good implementation. It's also training your users. Yeah. So you have to be you need smart people to use smart AI. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a level of training and yeah, setting expectations. You know, I like to explain to people, you know, about the non-deterministic factor of AI, you know, probability. You know, sometimes I can just think about it in terms of statistics, right? So, and I'm going to share one more slide too, because this helps me. This is a model I've broken it down to that helps me to kind of understand and sometimes explain it to people. So, um, so, you know, if you break down an AI system into its basic components, there's like three basic components, right? The hardware, the software, and the data. So I think it, you know, when we're talking about hardware, we're talking about the compute, or that sometimes referred to as infrastructure. So those are, you know, the chips that we're dealing with. And then software are the models, right? And also there's all different types of models. I think because of ChatGPT, most of us are thinking about, you know, ChatGPT and large language models, which of course very, very useful part of, you know, AI, especially in FileMaker, as we're incorporating natural language right into our tool set. But there's all different, there's vision models and embedding models, of course, and many other types of models. And then with data, you know, because yes, this is something that's wide and vast and is kind of at the heart of what, might you say, makes the AI work, and that's the training data, which is going to be vast amounts of information, and but as well as the prompts and the context that you're using. And then, you know, I thought about this a little bit more, and I realized that this concept, breaking it down, shouldn't be so hard for FileMaker developers, because we're used to this idea of hardware, software, data, right? But one very key difference is that data in FileMaker is very structured, right? It's like it's tables and fields, and in some way the data in AI systems is just completely unstructured. And so I think that's a lot of what we're trying to accomplish, you know, is using these two different systems, integrating them, and tying this data piece together. But of course, this is a very broad and nuanced topic, but in a very, you know, concise way, I break it down to these three parts.
I think that's a good transition point to talk more about how you're working with your clients and your teams to continuously build AI literacy. So are there any specific tactics you're using in your organization, in either your organization like Lesterius or FullCity, or that you're taking to your clients? And I also have a question on this one for everybody.
So yeah, this is one of the key services that Violet Beacon is offering, and you know, I'm working with clients to build to teach AI literacy, but also to build governance, right? And a lot of that involves the culture, because there are people that, you know, maybe have only just heard of ChatGPT, and then there are others that are, you know, way more familiar, are using it daily. So I think it's becoming familiar with the users, with the people in the organization, and then making training accessible to them. But I think we all learn in our own ways too. And for some people, it's just like, for me, I just have to kind of get in there and play with it and mess with it, to really get a good grasp of it. So I'm trying to communicate that with clients as well. Just get in and play around, like we've all been saying, but also know some of the principles of AI, starting with, you know, private information, what not to put up there, and what settings to turn on if you're going to use ChatGPT and you don't want your information to be available for training on the model. You know, there's simple toggles that you can turn on. So I think I try to break it down into the simplest ways for people to make it approachable.
And split also the research in your team, because the landscape is so broad, you cannot learn it all. And if you think you know everything already, everything has changed in the same time. So what I did for myself was picked up a couple of topics. So I was triggered by regression models, for instance. I looked more into that and did some research with some of the colleagues with that, while other colleagues are more playing with MCP and agentic approach. And you share, in fact, you share experiences and failures. I think that's very open, discuss about the failures and try to understand why it failed. Most often it's not about the technology, but it's about how you use the technology, and then you can learn from it. So next time, if we have something, okay, what was your experience, and do that, and involve everyone in the company, because I told it already, your champions are not always the developers who wants to understand how technology works, but sometimes users with less technology have better results with AI, because they're just using the tools. And we might also not forget why we use AI. It's just to become more efficient, not to use AI as a tool. And if AI for certain use cases is not useful, there's still the old technology or the alternatives that we used for a long time.
I have a question, and I'm not quite sure exactly what you're asking, Marla. And this is, do you see FileMaker being used as a support tool like ChatGPT for end users within a solution? Or are you using that large amount of FileMaker data as training knowledge to build a smarter application?
So I think that's, are you building like a chat bot within your FileMaker system? Is that kind of the question?
Yes, that's
okay. Versus using the actual data from your FileMaker. I mean, I think that's, well, I mean, I think they're both valuable for sure. Having a chat bot to allow you to, you know, chat with your FileMaker database is, of course, you know, a very useful and kind of, you know, a go-to, right? If you want to build AI into your system, it seems like that's the first two. But I think, yeah, that the real win is knowing that, you know, with FileMaker solutions, a lot of people have 30, 40-year-old systems with a lot of proprietary data. And as I was talking about, you know, in an AI system, the data is really central. So knowing that you have all this data, knowing that it also has to be in good shape and form, but how useful that can be, you know, or what insights can you gain from that data as well. So I think, you know, sometimes I think about AI like in the most basic ways, that it's been in our lives for years and years, right? Like Google, you know, every time you Google something, there's an AI algorithm going on there that, you know, spits out the top results, right? So there's personalized algorithms going on. And I think remembering, for me, just remembering some of the simple, straightforward use cases of general AI, you know, in major companies going on, and how can I apply those directly in FileMaker, right? So that is using the proprietary data in a company's direct FileMaker solution.
Yes, and how the users will use AI and the long end, we don't know today. So it was the same when the internet popped up. That had a huge influence of how applications looked like. In the past, you had to know the complete navigation within an application to go to a certain point and go up again, and then hyperlinking came in, and then users expected hyperlinking. Same with the iPhone that came out. It has a huge impact on how people interact with computers, and today as well. AI, we now use it as a chat. Maybe some people will prefer it to speak with it. Maybe some of them we will not see any. For some of them, they think we will not see any interfaces anymore and just talk and get information from systems. At the end, it will be the end user who will determine what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think you're right. And what's so fascinating to me is that, just on a more societal global level, that the AI, with AI becoming part of our daily lives, that yes, we're shaping the AI, but the AI is also shaping us, right? And so to remember to kind of to think about that, because in a way, we're not using AI just to kind of rebuild existing workflows. There may be workflows that come out of this that are completely new that we haven't had before. And so it really is, I mean, it's a frontier we're on. I can't say confidently enough to make predictions about where we're all headed, but I know with certainty that AI is part of my daily life and my clients' daily lives.
Yeah, I just want to share out the results of our last kind of general question about how you approach learning in your organization. And about half, just over half, said mostly they learn on their own. And a third said that they use a mix of collaborative and individual learning. And then the other choices had just a couple responses each. As we are approaching the end of our time together, I just want to ask everybody to please just do our last poll before you leave us. And I just want to give a heads up that our next Community Live is November 20th. And there I'll be joined by a panel where we're going to have a conversation about business continuity best practices. And then due to the Thanksgiving holiday and then Christmas and New Year's coming up, we're only going to have one Community Live in December, and that will be on December 11th. Watch your email or the Claris community for that topic. We'll be announcing it in a few weeks. And I think my last question for all of you as we wrap up is, how do you measure the success of AI adoption in organizations? Are you looking at ROI for specific projects, or are you using other tools or other metrics to determine success?
I think this is still an up and coming topic. I think organizations as a whole, we're still gathering the tools in order to know how to measure these. Because I don't think it's the traditional ROI. I mean, in my opinion, we're getting new capabilities and new skills, so it's not necessarily replacing a process. I mean, I have no problem with using a good old fashioned workflow with APIs and not bringing AI, because I don't think AI is the solution. And it's always about making things more efficient. Like sometimes a good old fashioned workflow is exactly automated workflow is what we need. But AI, and that's why I think a lot of this right now is about experimentation and getting used to the tools and discovering what new processes you can build that you didn't have accessible to you before. And I think, in my opinion, I'm still feeling it's a little harder to get quite as concrete about how to measure that. I mean, there are, of course, the kind of what am I trying to say? Qualitative measures about, are employees more happy? Are they, having, is there greater stability within the company? And of course, growth. But I think it's a little bit too, I don't know, early days to come up with the concrete measurements for those.
Yes, and like everything in learning, if you want to get more efficient and you learn something new, it slows down first. So you have a G curve. You become less efficient during learning, and at a certain moment, you're picking up, and then you're becoming more and more efficient. And then that's why it's too soon often to say, okay, in the old days it was better because this was working fine, because we are still not mastering the new things.
And I just want to share, I just dropped a couple other resources in chat for anyone who's still here. A couple of weeks ago, we released in a FileMaker, in the Claris community, an AI playbook, and that has resources that have been developed by Claris and also by several community members to help our community get started exploring where they might use AI and then experimenting and implementing their projects. And then ultimately to become evangelists or speakers about AI, like my three lovely panelists today. So please check those out. I also shared a link to the Claris Academy courses. I just want to share some feedback. It's reassuring to realize that we're all searching and learning. Lots of thank yous for sharing your experience and insights. And I don't know if any of you have anything you want to say in closing before we wrap up.
I just think there's no shortage of information and training resources, and like Rosemary put in there, the Claris Academy training for certification is excellent. I've also really enjoyed the previous community live recordings that have been done. I think there was one with Mark from Productive Computing and talking about specific use cases for AI, and that was really useful. So there's so much information, and I really think it comes down to just pick a path, start somewhere, pick somebody you trust if you're gonna listen to an expert on this, and just try to make it fun. Pick something that's fun for you. Like my first AI project, I was building sewing patterns for my daughter, so you can do something fun like that.
Yes, and share your experience on the community.
Matt, anything to add?
No, I think AI is like a big buzzword right now, and I think a lot of business owners, they don't know, they know they want to be in the AI game. They don't know what they can, what that looks like. And I think us as FileMaker developers, we are the answer to that. We can bridge, we're the gap between the technology and the non-technical user. So, just continue to experiment. I found that using the new script steps in FileMaker 2025, especially like the generate response for model, was like an easy win of allowing a user to interact with their data, ask a question and get an answer from their data. And then, I was able to get people on board. Okay, yes, this is worth investing in. And then I was able to do maybe more sophisticated things like the document processing. But I think as developers, we're, uniquely positioned to, bring these new things to users.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I just saw the comment about Ronnie's demo. I will share a link to that when I wrap up the resources today, because I don't have time to go pull the link before I end the webinar. So please check out the link in Claris community for this episode to get that resource. Thank you, Koen, Matt, and Kate for joining me today. Thanks everybody out there who watched and asked questions and answered our questions. And I hope to see you in 2 weeks when we talk about business continuity. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, Rose.